TCU lands a starting corner in the portal and Elijah Jackson.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. We start today with some transfer portal news, which we've been hitting on for a long time. Winter transfer portal window has officially closed. So, as of yesterday, it's a little different from TCU. I'll get to that difference here in a second. But as of yesterday, as far as guys that the Frogs are pursuing, they had to get their paperwork in by the end of the day on the 28th. Frogs did land a player, though, in the transfer portal shortly after that bowl victory against Louisiana. Elijah Jackson, corner from Washington. If you've been watching the show late last week, you heard a little bit about Elijah, his story. He was a starter on that Washington team that went and played a few years back. He also had a pass breakup against Adonai Mitchell in the playoff game against Texas that sealed the victory for the Huskies. This past year kind of fell out of favor with a new coaching staff and was in and out of the lineup, but a talented player, and I think he'll be a starter for TCU in 2025. When you look at this corner room, it's intriguing because Avery Helm didn't play this year. He was supposed to be your number one corner. He was the guy with the most experience coming back. He has a knee injury before the season even starts that ends up derailing his year, which that was a big bummer. And I think it really affected this defense because Avery had some tough moments a few years back. Most notably, Travis Hunter went up and got a ball over him. You also had that Texas game. I think it was Mitchell that caught a pass on a third down play that didn't allow TCU to get the ball back and go score. But he was a very solid player besides that. And those two wide receivers are very good. Travis Hunter will be in the NFL shortly. Mitchell's been playing in the NFL right now. Avery Helm would have been a great addition to this team this past year. So it's almost like you're kind of getting another portal player in Helm next season because he didn't get a chance to play this past season. Now you got Elijah Jackson. And first off, you get a guy with just a ton of experience who's played in big games. I think that's a huge plus. 2023 was his best season. 61 tackles, 43 solo tackles, 5 pass breakups. Does not have an interception in his career, but is around the ball a lot, breaks up passes, defends passes well, physical player. And I asked Roman, the host of Locked On Huskies, the Washington Locked On podcast, I said, hey, what went on with Elijah this past season? What was the deal? And his consensus about Elijah as a player was he has all the talent in the world. He's been a bit of a streaky player. His highs are high, but his lows can be low. This year he got beat up by someone a little more physical than him, who defends the run better, is more aggressive in press, and has a brighter NFL future. So if you look at him as a streaky player, then TCU might end up being a great fit because you have Avery Helm on one side. That's going to be your guy. On the other side, now you've got Channing Canada potentially, Vernon Glover, Javon McIvor's a player that came on late in the season, and then Elijah Jackson. All those guys can compete for a starting role, and whoever doesn't get the job, you have the ability to rotate those other players in and out depending on what's happening, who has the hot hand, who's playing well. At the end of this season, we saw that with JT Broughton's struggles, they started rotating more bodies in there. So Channing Canada was someone who got some more snaps. We saw McIvor get some more snaps. Thank goodness for Lamarian James. He was a godsend this year. With the injuries they had at corner, his role went from maybe a rotational guy to your dude on the boundary on a every week basis. And he competed really well and overall did a fantastic job. Another reason why I believe Elijah Jackson will be a starter and will be a huge factor in this defense, if you remember right before the season, corners coach Carlton Buckles, he leaves. He moves on. It was odd. The timing was weird, but for an unspecified reason, he steps down. Well, Julius Juice Brown takes over, and Julius Brown was supposed to be an analyst this year. He comes over from Washington. He was part of Kalen DeBoer's staff. Andy Avalos picks him up. They had worked together in the past. Juice was supposed to be an analyst. He gets thrust into this role as your corners coach. And while he has a ton of experience, I think one reason these corners are going to be better next year is because he's going to have a full offseason to work with these guys. He's going to know that he's the dude all offseason long, all of spring ball and fall camp, and he'll know, okay, these are the people I'm working with. So what does he go do in the portal? He goes and gets a guy that he trusts. He coached Elijah Jackson at Washington. A new staff comes in. They said, you know what? We think we're going to go a different direction. Elijah still was a player on special teams that made plays. When I was looking at just information for him, I came across this video. Urban Meyer spotlighted Jackson in the Northwestern game because he chased down a return man on kickoff coverage and prevented a touchdown. And a few plays later, Washington forces a fumble and gets the ball back. It was the effort play of the week. So that's the type of player you're getting. A veteran who knows what it takes to win, who has played at a high level in the past, and is going to come in here and be able to pick up this defense quickly and get right to work. And your corners coach now has a dude that he knows his strengths and weaknesses. He knows what he can get out of the guy. And on the other side of Avery Helm, I think that's a good 1-2 punch. Plus, you've got players behind him that are going to rotate in and out. But in my mind, if you had questions about, okay, who's going to be the other corner, depending on where Avery Helm is health-wise, do I think Vernon Glover has a chance to compete? Sure. Do I feel like a guy like McIver or Canada has a chance to compete? Yes. But it doesn't make sense for him to make this move unless he feels like he's got a really good chance to play on a weekly basis. And he knows Julius Brown well. They've got a good relationship. He's coached him before. I don't think he's going to BS a former player like that. He's going to be straight with him and tell him the truth. This is a good pickup. Elijah Jackson joins this portal class, which to this point, Ansel Denbu, defensive lineman, a couple LSU guys, and Kylan Jackson, the safety, and Kamorian Pimpton at tight end, wide receivers, and Jordan Dwyer from Idaho, Joseph Manjack from Houston, a tackle, and Rashid Jackson from Incarnate Word, and then Elijah Jackson, corner from Washington, joining the fold. And corner and safety next year is starting to look like it has some serious depth. A guy that impressed me in this bowl game was Austin Jordan, who played a little bit of both positions at Texas, but he's slid into the safety role at TCU. So if you can get Bud Clark back, which there's some smoke there that's happening, all of a sudden, Austin Jordan, Jamel Johnson, Bud Clark, some young players behind them, that's a huge deal. And that's a big piece of what they're doing in 2025. Nnamdi Obaizor announced that he's coming back for this next season. There was a ruling that came down that JUCO players now have 4 years to play after they transferred. So Nnamdi's going to come back and make it happen. And I know he struggled in the last few years, but his experience is going to be valuable. And I think an off season for him to put the work in, figure some things out, get a better feel for this defense, that'll be a huge key. The two things next season, in my mind, they're going to allow this team to take a huge leap if they can do it. And I talked about this yesterday. You got to run the ball well. You have to find a way to run the ball well. But then, can this defense take a leap in 2025? I believe they can. What has to happen? Well, they've done a nice job of plugging some holes so far. You go get some JUCO defensive linemen that you think can play right away. You go get a guy in Ansel Denbu who had 6 sacks at Washington State. A linebacker should be pretty salty. Caleb Larmzor coming back. He had a good game against Louisiana. Nnamdi coming back, so you have experience there. At safety and corner, I just ran down the options you have at that spot. You bring in a guy like Elijah Jackson who should be able to step in and start right away. And suddenly all these holes are kind of starting to fill in the gaps. A young defensive line with experience now. It wasn't ideal that Travis Jackson had to play so much this year. I think in an ideal world, you would have allowed him to kind of watch, but he played really well when he got out there. And his experience is now going to help you next year. So we're thankful that Travis Jackson got those snaps. Marcus Deal, he's going to be ready to go. Devin Deal's going to be ready to go. Paulo Wale coming back from injury. Zach Chapman, I saw he was named a second-team freshman All-American by The Athletic today. Had 3 sacks this year. Showed some great talent. Showed some great things from the interior. Do they slide him to the outside? It remains to be seen. But wherever they have him, he has shown an ability to get after the passer. And that's something this team desperately needs. Elijah Jackson, Washington corner, joining this defense. This is a Julius Brown evaluation and pickup. He says, listen, trust me, Andy Avalos. I know this guy. I know he can play. It didn't work out last year. He just needs a change of scenery. This past coaching staff, they didn't know what they were doing with him. But I know this player. I got the best out of him. He was at his best when he was coached by Julius Brown. So bring him in here. Let's put him at that other corner spot. We got an experienced player in Avery Helm. We got some younger guys. We got a good mix of some vets and some young guys that can fill in the gaps and rotate in and out. There's talent here. He went and got his dude. This is his player. He had his best season under his tutelage. And now Coach Brown has a continuity of the offseason to figure some things out and put some things together. I'm stoked to see what he can do in this Andy Avalos defense. When we come back, this bowl game, what does TCU have to do in the portal coming out of this bowl game? We'll talk about it next year on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. We've all been there. You open up your banking app and you look at your account and you say, wait, what the heck happened? Where'd my money go? You get that pit in your stomach. You start looking at transactions. Oh, no, I'm still paying for this. I'm still paying for this streaming service. What is this subscription? What is this recurring payment? Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 when using all the app's premium features. If they can get me and my wife to cancel HelloFresh, that would be fantastic. I'm going to download Rocket Money, get that done. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions. Reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. Save money. Put it back in your pocket. Do it today. TCU won the New Mexico Bowl 34-3 over Louisiana. It was an impressive win. They dominated the ball game. It was never really close. And I give credit to Coach Dykes and his staff for getting the team ready to play, having them motivated, having them prepared. It was, from start to finish, a bludgeoning. Now, if you want to check out the post-game show, you can do that. That's up there on the YouTube feed and also on your favorite podcast platform. What does it mean for 2025? What are the main takeaways? I really like what I saw from Eric McAllister. It was somewhat limited action, but he had 8 catches, I believe 79 yards. He made things happen down the field. He made things happen on those early, kind of stop routes, RPO stuff. He looks the part. He's big, he's physical, he's fast. It was one play, so I'm not going to go over the ledge here, but Braylon James had a really nice snag in garbage time. Ken Seals just whipped one out there, and it was a short game, but he just kind of threw his hands out there and snagged it. I was impressed by that. And you can also see when he hits the field, that physicality is there. This receiving core, you are replacing a lot, but I do feel like they have the tools to be solid again. Eric McAllister has plenty of experience. He's coming back. Yeah, a dude like Joseph Manjack, who has been very productive at Houston over the past few years. He's a slot guy. Then you got Jordan Dwyer on the other side, on the outside. Braylon James is a fun name to know. You got some young guys like Izukama and Kyle Baker. Possibly Terry Shelton, the true freshman, who could come in and make things happen. Jordan Bailey is an explosive player in the slot. That was another thing that stood out to me. He only had one real play, but that jet sweep where he took it and got about 10 yards, and if he could have broken one more tackle, he probably would have housed it. But that explosiveness from the slot position, TCU missed that. Now, J.P. Richardson was really good for them. And I think TCU is going to miss his presence, his consistency next year. But JP is not an explosive athlete. Now, he ended up being their punt returner because he would catch the ball. He made good decisions. He did have that touchdown against Kansas that really turned the game on the punt return. But overall, JP's game was moving the chains, being, a factor on third down, being a safety valve for Josh Hoover. It's been a couple seasons since they had a Darius Davis or a Kevontae Turpin, where that athleticism and speed from that position gives you a lot of options on those pop passes, those jet sweeps, some stuff down the seam where you can create yards after the catch. Jordan Bailey has that type of twitchy athleticism that you need to make some big plays happen. So he should be a great complement to a receiver that's already good. Nate Palmer looked pretty solid. The numbers weren't eye-popping, but at that running back spot, he looked like he had something going on, broke some tackles, ran between the tackles well. It feels like they're rolling the dice with him and Jeremy Payne on being the guys. If I were them, I'd probably go get one more veteran running back, but I do love what I've seen from Nate Palmer and Jeremy Payne. And I understand why the coaching staff says, you know what? We think these are the dudes. We think these are the players. And we're going to roll with them and give them the opportunity to make their own mark and sort of start that process. I believe you got to go get one more offensive lineman. I'm excited about Cade Bennett being back in the lineup, but you lose James Brockermeyer, so now you're moving Colton Deary over to center. He looked good yesterday. I thought Ryan Hughes did okay, but he also looked like a freshman at different points. Ben Taylor Whitfield struggled. Had to go bad holding penalties. Louisiana brought a lot of pressure. I rewatched this game today, and that was something I noticed. There was a ton of pressure on Josh Hoover, and part of that was blocking issues, but a big part of it too was you're kind of throwing together a new offensive line, and they're throwing a bunch of different things at you. But that being said, that's going to be the challenge going into next year. Because you're going to have an offensive line with a lack of continuity again. And in that first game, when you're facing Bill Belichick, he's going to throw a lot of different things at you. That's what he does. So you have to be prepared for that. And in my mind, you got to have to go get a tackle who can start right away. I just think that's going to be the key. Interior O-line should shake out pretty well, but I believe you need one tackle that can play right away. And I don't think Rasheed Jackson's that guy. I think he's a good project, and I think he's going to be a good player for TCU, but it's going to take some time. And I said this yesterday, but they lost two. I mean, they're 10-2 if they can run the ball. If they can run the ball, they beat UCF, and I think they beat Houston. UCF definitely, because all they need to do is milk the clock and run out the clock and get some first downs. Houston a little bit different because I think their inability to run the ball was a huge factor in that ball game. Schematically, Willie Fritz just said, you can't do this, so I'm going to sell out and stop the passing game and force you to have a response, and they didn't have one. But they definitely could win the UCF game if they could just milk the clock and run the football. So that's a huge key. And I love what Kendall Briles did this year. I think he did a great job adjusting at times. But at a certain point, not having a run game falls on your OC. I mean, it's a staff problem, like it's a Sonny Dykes problem too. But, okay, I love that you can kind of MacGyver this running game like you did this year. That's awesome that you can adjust and make some things happen. But there's also something to be said for putting together a run game that makes sense and that can work. Big Easy asked me, he was like, why is the offensive line coach not being held responsible or accountable? So A.J. Ricker is TCU's offensive line coach. And I agree. The O-line has missed the mark the last couple seasons. I will say AJ has a really good relationship with Sonny. They go way back. His title is co-offensive coordinator and O-line coach. I know he's a big part of schematically what they're trying to do in the run game. So I don't think there's going to be a change there. But you're right. Like it's been like that unit's play has been unacceptable the past couple seasons. It just has. I believe he would say that. And I know they've shuffled around a lot of people and they've had transfers, but something's amiss. Like, okay, if it's the continuity aspect, well, that's a problem. If that's a problem, you got to fix. If it's an evaluation problem, that's a problem. It's a problem you got to fix. And they haven't found a way to fix it yet. Maybe this is the year. I was very hopeful. I do think losing James Brockermeyer hurts, though, because so much of O-line play is just getting those reps together, getting that communication down, and coming together as one unit. When we come back, Haas Haney's staying in the Big 12. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Haas Haney's headed to Stillwater. Doug Meacham, former TCU inside wide receivers coach, is now the play caller at Oklahoma State. He'll be the OC this upcoming season, and Haas is going to reunite with Meach and give that a shot, give it a chance. I don't think this was entirely surprising. I know Chris Hummer reported this, so this was going to happen. This wasn't on Haas's initial list. Like, he had a list come out of like, here's who's interested. These are the teams that I'm talking to. Oklahoma State wasn't one of them, but the connections there, you see why it's a good fit. Now, I will say it's intriguing to me because I said this when it happened. The reason Haas is leaving is because there's just not an option for playing time right now. Josh Hoover is the dude. He's going to be the dude next year. He might be the dude in 2026, depending on how this next year goes and what his NFL prospects look like. So Haas Haney wants to play, and I understand that. He says, look, I want to have a chance to play. And Oklahoma State's quarterback situation is in flux. They had Alan Bowman there this past year in his 19th year of college football. But he's moving on to the NFL draft. So Garrett Rangel and Zane Flores are the two kind of main names to know as returners who could take over that team. Both guys played this year and in spot duty. But I don't think there's just a clear path to starting. He's going to have to compete for the job. And, I mean, that's probably true just about every P4 school, but I did wonder, like, if his sole requirement was where can I play right away? Even if that meant dropping down to like a G5, a group of 5 school, just for the opportunity to say, look, I need a chance to play right now. I want to play in this moment. But good luck to him. I mean, we'll see what happens. I think he's a talented player, obviously, and it's unfortunate that it didn't work out here at TCU. But I don't think there's some big conspiracy here. I just feel like it's as simple as when he signed, Josh Hoover was kind of an unknown commodity still. He had played 6 games and had some limited success. And then this year he established himself as the guy, and he's going to be the guy in the foreseeable future. So Haas is taking a chance to go play elsewhere, and, we'll see what happens once the offseason starts. And maybe this was Doug Meacham kind of calling a shot and saying, look, this is the dude I want. This is a guy that I trust, that I know, that I'm very familiar with, and that's who I want to call plays for. And if that's the case, then it's a great opportunity for him. But Haas Haney's moving on to Oklahoma State and wanted to push that update out there. So I said earlier in the show, the winter portal window closed on December 28th. TCU, since they played their bowl game, there's a rule that teams that play in the postseason, players get 5 days after the bowl game to enter. So if you're like, okay, transferring out is done, there's still a chance that some players will move on after the bowl game. And then there will be a spring window as well. And so we'll see in April who TCU can hold on to. But overall, I think, once again, just a really good job of the staff retaining talent. Losing Haas is a bummer. But as far as starters go, I mean, you haven't really lost anybody yet. You get Jamel Johnson back. You're going to lose some people just due to graduation and the draft and those kind of things. And we'll see what trickles out here over the next few days. But so far, a really great job of this coaching staff retaining talent and keeping continuity on this roster. Let's see what thoughts people have. Frog Fan says Josh has 6,157 career passing yards. If he keeps his pace, he'll surpass Trevon Boykin's 10,728 career yards mark and become the all-time leader in career passing yards at TCU. But that probably means we're still fully air raid because we don't have a run game, and I hope we have a run game by then. Yeah, one of my statements yesterday was just I hope that he doesn't break. So Josh set the single season record for passing yards in a season. He had 3,949. I hope he doesn't break that next year. And I say that because I just hope this offense is more balanced. I hope that they're able to run the ball better and have that aspect of the game along with what they can do throwing the football. I think the passing offense should still be pretty solid with what they have on the table. David asked me what my thoughts are on Baylor getting Walker White in the transfer portal. So Walker White is a talented quarterback from Auburn who did not play this past season. Yeah, I mean, it's intriguing. Like Sawyer Robertson's going to be the guy, but he kind of places himself as the next in line dude. And, Baylor has put their foot on the gas with NIL over the past calendar year, and it's paid off in a big way for them. So we'll see what Dave Aranda can do in following up this past season, and we'll also see what they do against LSU in the Texas Bowl. I think TCU is going to bring in a quarterback as well, but I don't feel like it'll be a young guy. I think it's going to be a veteran player, kind of similar to what they did with Ken Seals this year, just to have another possibility in that room and not to put as much pressure on Adam Schobel to be ready to rock and roll right away. We'll be back tomorrow and all week long. It's Locked on Horned Frogs, your team every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast.